Hi, English and World Languages teachers, and welcome to Tech Tuesday. Today we're going to talk about EdPuzzle and some best practices for creating videos in English or in world languages, but really best practices for any topic, okay, that you may be teaching, any content area. So to begin here, I'm in my EdPuzzle Educator dashboard, and I'm in the content area. And let's say that, first of all, let's talk about using another video. So, not a video that you've created, but one that's already been created. And say, for example, that you are in English and you are working on the research process with MLA citations. So, I've just grabbed this video here. I have gone out into YouTube and have found a video, copied the share code, and I'm going to paste it right there and enter that to pull up a specific video that I've already researched, that I've already made sure is great for MLA citations. Okay, so that would be example with English here. Remember that you can do questions. You can embed multiple choice questions. You can embed open-ended questions, or you can embed a note. And by a note, what you can do, your different options here are to either type in a text note that the video would pause and the student would be forced to read that note before they could move on. Or another really cool option under note is that you could embed a link there to link them out to another resource. So maybe you have a notes taking page that you want them to take notes on. You have some sort of graphic organizer. You could certainly add a link there. And another really cool thing, in case you didn't realize or you haven't used it very often, is that you can record a voice memo. So you can press this down, and as it begins to start, the clock begins to start ticking off, you are actually recording a voice memo for the students that will be embedded into this video that they will again have to stop and listen to before they can move further. So the example with English is maybe you again are starting the research process. So you have found this really good instructional video on MLA citations with YouTube that is going to walk them through lots of different samples.
You're going to put the title of the book in italic font. Now you'll notice we don't have it in.
Okay. Or maybe you're a world languages teacher. So for my world languages teachers, maybe you are beginning a certain tense. In this case, I found a really good video on the imperfect tense. So I also always used to use these Senior Jordan videos when I taught Spanish. So this is a good tutorial on AR verbs in the imperfect tense. So maybe you're using this as an intro of formation and any of the accents, things like that with AR verbs in Spanish. So again, same options that I mentioned with the English video. As far as questions, you can embed multiple choice questions throughout. You can embed open-ended questions throughout, or an audio note. So let's talk about some best practices, okay? So first of all, some best practices with EdPuzzle is that your video lesson should mirror how you teach in class. So for me, teaching in class, I always wanted to connect to their prior knowledge first. What do they already know about MLA citations? What do they already know about verbs in general in Spanish? Or have they learned anything about the imperfect tense? Have we already covered the preterite tense? So maybe connecting that knowledge. And then you want to move on to the actual content and then practicing that content. And then finally putting it into hands-on practice of the skill. Okay. So teach the content, ask the questions, review the answers to those questions, and repeat until you feel like that knowledge base is really solidified. A lot of times in class, it's a great practice to follow the I do, you do, and then we do. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you an example. You're going to do it on your own, just a few, and then we're all going to practice doing that. Okay, and now I want us to focus down here at the bottom under these sticky notes here. So, beginning, throughout, and end. I showed you just now that some options with embedding are not only open ended and multiple choice questions, but also this audio note option. Okay, so a great idea is to begin a video in EdPuzzle by starting off with an audio note with your voice. Okay, so what's the reason behind starting with an audio note? Well, you're going to let the students know what the video is about. So, for example, hi guys, it's Miss Mullen. You're about to watch a video on MLA citations and a works cited page, and I really need you to pay close attention. Make sure that you pull out your notebook and you're jotting down notes. Or, hey guys, it's Miss Mullen. We're going to start learning about the imperfect tense. You already have a graphic organizer that you should be taking notes in as you are watching this video. Another great thing to include in an audio note at the beginning is to explain why they're watching the video. Why is it important? What does it have to do with the next step in class? What to pay attention to because they need to know what's coming next. So maybe, listen closely to this video on a works cited page because we're going to do a practice works cited page with some sample citations or some sample sources for the follow up activity after you watch this video, or pay very close attention to this tutorial on the imperfect tense because coming up, we are going to be doing some practice with some verbs in the imperfect tense, doing some writing. Now, at the beginning, you could give them an optional hyperlink. So maybe you have a Google Doc that you want them to take notes in, or maybe you have a graphic organizer that you want them to reference as they listen and maybe jot down details from the video. So you could actually do an audio note with a link attached right there as well. And again, I showed you this before, but to do that, you simply click here on Note. You can enter your note or click the microphone to record. We showed how the recording would look like. And then if you want to include a link, this little page pops up where it allows you to actually copy and paste a URL. So this could be a link out to a Google Doc, for example, and then this is the text to describe it. So maybe it says graphic organizer for taking notes on the imperfect tense. Okay. All right, so a few more best practices once we get through with the beginning. As we are going through this video and we are embedding different questions, so maybe I stop this video right here. About halfway through, we're talking about the imperfect tense, or again, my English example, we are talking about MLA citations, okay? If we pause it right here and we are going to embed a question at this point, again, it could be multiple choice, it could be open-ended. Of course, you could stop here and just give them a note, something to remind them about. But some best practices with that is just make sure that you're including those questions throughout. You don't want to do a ton of questions. I would say 3 to 4 is going to be good for a 10-minute video or so. But you want them to be very intentional. And again, some tips that I picked up on some of the EdPuzzle PDs offered by EdPuzzle themselves. The biggest one that I came away with was 2 options would be A, to embed a question right here as soon as he gives the answer to this verb trabajar. Maybe I'd embed a question as, what was the yo form of trabajar in the imperfect tense? Type it in. He's just gone over it, so I'm checking their comprehension right there in the moment. Or the other hint that they gave is, why not wait? This is a minute and 44 seconds into this video. Why not come out here to 2 minutes and 44 seconds or 3 minutes and 44 seconds and say, earlier in the video, you saw the verb trabajar. What is the ellos form of trabajar in the imperfect tense? Check their knowledge later on, see how well they were paying attention. You could even be nice and say, hint, rewind back to a minute and 44 seconds if you don't remember. So you could either, again, ask the question right there after the content is given in that moment, or do a memory check. Have kind of a delayed memory check where they have to go back and tell you whether or not they remember a specific section of the video. Okay. And now let's talk about some best practices for the end of a video, whether you are creating your own video to instruct, or you are using one that is already coming from YouTube or TED Talks. Um, Couple of guidelines here. Questions to assess. So at the very end, a suggestion that was given by EdPuzzle themselves was to embed some open-ended questions at the end to kind of take the temperature of your students to see where they are. What were some things that they were confused on? Was there anything that they didn't understand, so that you as the teacher have that feedback? So consider at the end of the video here, and if I'm looking at the same video from before, if I come towards the end here, consider at the very tail end of this video embedding some questions that are open-ended. Okay, so open-ended questions to assess their thinking at the moment, check for their understanding. Other best practices at the end, we talked about giving an intro audio note. So why not bookend it with an audio note to wrap it up? What's the reason for this? Well, again, kind of like the audio note at the beginning, let them know what to pay attention for and what was coming next. If you end with an audio note, you're leaving a clear message on what comes next. So your expectations for what they're going to do now that they've learned about MLA citations or a works cited page. Now we're going to do this. We're moving on to this assignment that you will find in your Google Classroom. Or if we're learning about verbs in the imperfect tense, here is the next assignment that I want you to do to practice those skills that we learn. We're going from I do and you do now to we do. Another great thing about leaving that audio note at the end is that you can give them those important reminder that I have office hours today at 2:00. So after watching this video and doing your assignment in Google Classroom as a follow-up, if you have questions, I'll be on office hours at 2:00. And again, you can embed that audio note right here after you do some open-ended questions to assess their understanding. Then you can add that audio note right here at the end. Other great thing about adding an audio note is maybe, again, you're giving them those next steps, or you could link out to an additional video. Here's an additional video on the verbs hablar and tocar in the imperfect. In case you didn't understand from this video, here's an additional video to help you. Or here's another website. I'm going to link you out to the Purdue OWL website, the online writing lab, so that you can further investigate how to write a works cited page in MLA format. So some best practices, again, begin with that audio note, embed questions throughout the EdPuzzle video to engage students, and then end not only with some open-ended questions to assess where students are, but also an audio note to give them their next steps and those helpful reminders. Let's talk now about making your own videos in EdPuzzle. So I have a simple Google slide here. I'm going to talk to my English language arts teachers as well as to my world languages teachers. But whether you are using a combination of Google Slides plus Screencastify to record yourself, Loom, Screencast-O-Matic, any of those tools that are out there, the same rules apply that we talked about before, those same best practices. Make sure that the lesson that you're teaching is the focus, not the video, but the lesson. And again, making sure that what you're doing mirrors exactly what you would do if you were teaching it live in the classroom. So English language arts teachers, maybe you're introducing some vocabulary that will be coming up on a test. Maybe it's a grammar concept that you're taking a look at. Maybe you are introducing a concept like audience, purpose, and style. You have an argumentative piece that students are about to have to write coming up towards the end of the week. And so maybe you are reading some different passages that students have to talk about. What is the audience? What audience is that writer focusing toward? What is the purpose? What is their style? Okay, so those could be some things that you use EdPuzzle to introduce, embed questions for understanding, and then also maybe link out to other resources. My world languages people, maybe you are creating your own instructional videos and then using EdPuzzle on topics such as introducing vocabulary, again, grammar concepts like the imperfect tense that we saw earlier. Maybe you have a passage that you are reading to them. And then you read it to them. Maybe it's also written on a Google slide, and then they have to respond. One of the options in EdPuzzle, I believe it has been released. I'm going to check on this and log out in just a moment and log back in as a student. And I'll do that towards the end here just to double check. But I believe one of the options now for students is to record a voice note. As opposed to typing in a response, they can record their voice. This could be useful, obviously, for English language arts, for students practicing with their speaking skills, with their speech skills, with defending something, giving evidence. They could speak and answer with their voice in a response to a question. And obviously, a huge thing in world languages for them to listen to a passage and then respond with those productive language skills speaking. You also could use EdPuzzle for writing practice. Okay, so you give some samples. Maybe you start a story, you give a written start to a story on one Google slide, and then you pause it, and they have to finish that story in an open ended question, okay, could be used almost as a space to input a paragraph of writing practice. In any case, again, going back to our best practices here, if you are making your own video and uploading it, you want to make sure that it mirrors how you teach in the class. Same hints as before. Begin with an audio note to let the kids know the purpose of the video and what they should pay attention to, maybe what's coming up next. Throughout, you want to embed those questions, whether they're open-ended or multiple choice, to engage students. And at the end, make sure you give some questions to assess where they are, open-ended questions, and then bookend it. So you started with an audio note at the beginning, end with an audio note that, again, tells them the next steps, the next assignment, the next thing that they are to accomplish, and maybe gives them those reminders as to where to find help when your office hours would be, or possibly a link to a supporting document if they still have questions. So some best practices with EdPuzzle right there. I'm going to pause very quickly and check on that question that we had about whether or not students can actually respond with their voice or not. Okay, so I found this example of an EdPuzzle assignment from Miss White, and here's an open-ended question, and it does not seem that the option to record a voice response, looks like text, is the only option here for answering a question. There is no option yet to answer with your voice, but I will email our contact with EdPuzzle to see when that's going to be rolled out. So that is coming out soon. Last thing that I wanted to end this session with is a reminder that you'll talk this week in your department meetings about YouTube videos, and how coming up teachers will be given the, I should say, responsibility, not really the right, but the responsibility to be able to um, approve YouTube videos. Now, remember, it is somewhat of a detailed process, and that once you have approved a video, you are saying that you have watched that video, you have made sure that it is appropriate for students to watch. So, Why it is exciting that maybe we won't have to wait as long to get those videos approved, it does not come without a certain level of responsibility. So just keep your eyes on that coming up. And I'm going back one last time to our best practices with EdPuzzle. So, big reminders, make sure that the lesson comes first. You should be teaching via your video the exact same way that you would present if you were in class, showing different items on your Promethean board or sharing with students in Google Classroom. If you have any questions, let me know. Happy Tech Tuesday, and I hope that this gave you some ideas of how to set up your EdPuzzle assignments in a little bit different way. Thanks so much.